Welcome to this week's Macromolecules lab. Click on course content, scroll down until you get to the macromolecules, click on the folder, and then as usually you see an overview with this video, a listing of all the things you're supposed to be doing this week. Lab handout is here. I'm going to click on it real quick. You see 4 folders this time. Let's click on the lab handout real quick. You've got the lab handout in here. And we're going to go over the scientific method for starters. And then we're going to talk again about scientific method, about variables, about the independent and dependent variable. And then we're going to talk about the different macromolecules. And there is 4 of them that we're gonna work with, and you're going to test them. You're going to test for their presence with colorimetric tests. There's a lecture about the macromolecules. PowerPoint for the lecture can be found just like before, can be found in the PowerPoint folder in here. Lab instructions are here, how to do the tests. So these colorimetric tests look for the 4 different macromolecules. You've got the testing for sugar, reducing sugar to be exact, testing for starch, testing for protein, and testing for lipids. And then, because this is kind of a little bit of an involved thing, I created an additional little thing for you. There's a video how this works, but basically there is an Excel activity that you can find in in here. In order for it to work, you have to download this. You have to download this to your local computer. Um, but once you do that, you can then actually hands-on work with the materials. So you'll have little droppers that you drop your liquids in here, and then the color will change depending on what the ingredients are that you put in there. And in this Excel activity, you have the ability to do all the controls and to do the unknowns, which is what you're going to do in the lab, or what you would be doing in the lab too. Um, there's a couple of labs to, so in terms of what you're going to do, there's a quiz. There's a couple of labsters you can do, and then there's a handout question set. I'm going to go into the handout question set real quick. Because one of the things that's difficult in the lab handout, hang on, let me go quickly to the lab handout one more time. One of the things that's difficult in the lab handout, let me click on the question set real quick, that usually trips students up. So what you're going to do here in the lab handout is we first establish controls, and you just look what a positive and what a negative looks like. For Benedict's, you actually have the positive and negative. There's 2 levels of positivity. One is a low amount of sugar, and one is a high amount of sugar. So this is just establishing controls. Once you're done establishing controls, you then have a bunch of unknowns, and you're going to be asked what is the positive and what is the negative, and then you're going to be asked to guess what this liquid may be. So this unknown number 7, it does have sugar in it. It looks like it. It does not have iodine in it. It does not seem to have purette in it, and it does not have to seem to have a lipid in it. So the question is this what is this liquid? if we do this in the lab, you can smell these things, and that can kind of give you an idea of what this possibly be could be. Obviously, we're online; we can't smell these things, and even when we were in, due to COVID restrictions, we couldn't really smell these things either. Um, but so these unknowns, this is impossible to answer here on this handout. However, don't despair, because in the question set you see the same questions as before. So the same images, the same questions. And if you scroll down to where the unknowns are, where you're supposed to be answering what this may possibly be, I turned this into multiple choice questions so that here you have the options. What could this possibly be out of these four different things that you see there? So that makes it a little more possible to actually answer these questions. I do want to make one more note about this macromolecules thing over here. So the way you download it, you just click on here and then you say download. Once it downloads, you'll have to allow macros to work, and then you have this thing right here, and then you're just going to click on these. So you set up the tubes. So this is set up the tubes. You label the tubes. You always have to label things. So this labels the tubes. Um, and then you add, so here's your setup, what you're supposed to do, right? So you're going to add water to A1, D1, and C1. So you're going to add water, and you're going to tell it what tube. And see, then that's water right there. Um, Add protein to A2, for example. See, that's protein. And so you do that and you work your way through. Then once you've got all the items added that need to be added, you can then add the reagents to go along with it. Um, and you work your way through. Once you've done all the controls, you can then do the unknowns because a tab will show up for that worksheet. So this is not required, but if you want to just have a little bit of more hands-on, um, you can work with that. And that's it for this week.